let's make this garlic bread. So the first thing you're going to do is make sure that your oven is set to 425 degrees. And you're going to want a baking sheet and then also a pastry brush. This is my pastry brush. If you don't have one, you can just use a spoon. I'll show you how to use both of those. And of course, you want to make sure that you have your ingredients ready. So I like to keep everything in little separate containers. I've got the parsley, the garlic that's already been chopped up, some salt, and the olive oil. So the first thing you're going to do is spray your pan. I'm using a Silpat or parchment paper, so either one of those is fine. If you use that, you will not have to also spray your pan. So we're going to work on a lot of fine motor skills while we make this, which is why it is such a great recipe. So, okay, here we go. We're going to start with the olive oil and the pastry brush. If you have a pastry brush, all you're going to do is dip your brush in, and then you're going to gently paint the bread with the olive oil. This is a really fun activity for kids to do. And it's a good fine motor skill. If you do not have a pastry brush, you can do a couple of things. One of them is to just take a spoon and just, scoop a little bit of olive oil on and spread it around with the back of the spoon. So you can do that. This is if you don't have a pastry brush. The idea is we just want to cover up the bread with the oil. The other thing you can do is if you have a squeeze bottle, you can just drizzle your oil on. This is my personal favorite way to do it because it saves me all the trouble of washing all these containers, but it doesn't work on those fine motor skills. So when the kids are here, my number one way to do it is with this brush. And the best thing to do is, as it says in the recipe, is to do step 1, which is cover every piece of bread. First, we're going to cover every piece of bread with oil. Now, once you've got everything covered up with the oil, I'm just going to get the last drips out. Once you have everything covered up in oil, the next thing you're going to do is sprinkle your garlic. So here's where the fine motor skills come into place. Again, we're going to sprinkle every piece of bread with garlic before we move on to the next step. So this is how we learn to work efficiently in the kitchen. It's not efficient to sprinkle one piece of bread with garlic and then put the parsley on that bread and then put the salt on that bread and then move on to the next piece. The most efficient thing to do is to sprinkle every piece with garlic and then go back and do every piece with parsley and then go back and do every piece with salt. So that's the method we're going to be working on, and it's really the way we try to design the recipe so that we can kind of move it along. Okay, for the parsley, you can either chop this up beforehand, or one thing I also like to do is just have the kids rip it with their hands, because that can be a little fun. And if they don't want to rip it or they prefer, you can always just have them use some scissors if your kids are up to that and just cut the fresh herbs right on top of the bread. This is optional. Some of my kids don't like parsley, so I'm not going to put it on every piece. Some of my kids actually don't like garlic, so don't put it on every piece either. What's so nice about this recipe, or just cooking in general, is that you can really tweak everything to accommodate your own personal preferences. So if there's people in the family who don't like garlic, you can make garlicless bread, or basically toast. If you have people who don't like parsley, you don't have to put that on. If you have people who prefer basil or any other sort of herb, you can switch that out. So it's nice to be able to make any sort of adjustments that your family might want. Now, once your garlic bread is all covered, we'll just throw it in the oven for 8 minutes. It's pretty quick. And when it's done, you're going to see some nice browning around the edges. So I just pulled these out of the oven. So as you can see, it's gotten toasted around the edges. And the garlic is just starting to brown a little bit. If you prefer your bread a little crispier, you can go another minute or two. But this one is going to be crispy around the edge and then still soft in the middle.